I was here 2 weeks ago and I talked about the concept of repurposing the old post office. And I talked about the fact that we had new windows and new doors and new facade, that we could turn what I think is rather ugly structure into something quite nice and save the cost of demolition, and that way lower that and the mass. Now, I'm not going to repeat those arguments. Maybe you understand them, I'm sure. I do want to make this point, though, about one of my comments. One of the things you said in response was that you received no reuse proposals in response to the redevelopment plan. Well, I don't really think that should have surprised you, because although reuse is not prohibited per se in this plan, it's pretty clear that it's not contemplated or encouraged. Here's what your plan says on page 35. It is proposed that the site be completely cleared of existing buildings, parking lots, and other improvements, as well as existing trees and other plantings. The plan proposes a significant change in use over the current conditions, and there is no reason to retain any of the existing structures or vegetation. So, I don't think that the concept of reuse was really ever seriously considered by this body. And I got to tell you that there have been many instances in the past where that hasn't been the case. One that particularly comes to mind was when we talked about the old police station. And Leventhal, for example, brought to us the concept of reuse. We discussed it quite a lot, vigorous discussion. Ultimately, I thought, and so did the Majority Retention Committee, that it was not a candidate for reuse because primarily the rooms were too small and the rooms were too small because of the girders that were in the corners of the rooms, and these were support for the building. And to remove that would have been a major cost. So I just didn't think it was a candidate for reuse. But that was the kind of consideration we gave to the question. And the fact that it hasn't been discussed this time leads me to wonder about the health and sustainability of these stakes in this governing body. I'd say to you that one thing you could do to make sure that sustainability is still a priority for you with respect to this development is to make sure that the developer complies with your green criteria in the redevelopment plan.
I want to point out at the beginning, I appreciate Mr. Brownlee's consideration of this, and will point out that when I investigated the history of the redevelopment plans, all of them that originally contemplated Kings would be the anchor tenant. Regardless of the merits of that, that is no longer the reality. And I think that it is appropriate for you to reconsider the redevelopment in light of the fact that the central anchor of the original redevelopment plan is now not in your district. And that's a reason to vote no on this. Mr. Ryan, whose Larry referenced property tax relief. It's appropriate that I don't know the value of the project, but I did the arithmetic. The state reports every August on the equalized valuation of all properties in the town and state. Bayport has about $3,405 million worth of property. If this is a $10 million project, and I have no idea what the numbers are, but I'm going to plug that number in. The property tax relief is about 1/3 of 1%. For every $333, roughly $340 of property tax people pay now, they'll pay $1 less. The number one component of the redevelopment plan is that you maximize the value of this property to the township. I would urge you not to consider that in financial terms, given the negligible effect of property tax relief, given the paucity of public property in this town. You would be commended for adding that to the woodland. I don't want to neglect that. That was a wise, very foresighted decision that you made. You should do the same thing here. Developing this property privately, enabling a developer to make money, enabling a few people to live in Maplewood in addition to what it is now, and providing negligible tax relief is not maximizing the value of this piece of land that is now publicly held, has been for decades, and has many potential uses that maximize the value of the 25,000 people who live here.
As it has to be torn down, with reuse ever considered, and Mr. Profeta has already addressed that. With an attractive facade, it could be a success like the Women's Club, recently written up in the Village Green, as having brought revenue in the neighborhood. I believe the original RFP sent to contractors for bids, the demolishing of the post office was required. Why was reuse of the building not seriously considered as an alternative? A number of things have already been discussed by Mr. Profeta, but I'd like to summarize and say that I hope sanity prevails, lest our behemoth has the same effect on our village's ambience as that of a boulder and a fish pond.